Okay, so welcome everyone. We'll start this now officially after you've heard some nice background stories. So thank you for joining this webinar and welcome to this conversation. My name is Peg Grafland. I'm the Manager of Volunteer Services at Catalyst Plus, and I'll be moderating the panel discussion today. Prior to getting started, just a couple logistical things. This is a panel discussion and attending microphones will be muted during the entire webinar session. If you have questions during the webinar, you're very welcome to ask them anytime by putting them in the Q&A box. And if the question is directed at a specific panelist, please include their name. We'd really like this to be an interactive session, so we really welcome your questions and your input, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar, but we'll leave some time at the end for any unanswered questions. The webinar will be recorded and posted on My Catalyst Plus, and we'll be sharing it with all advisors who will be doing assignments in Latin America going forward. So today is our first session of a new series of 5 webinars focusing on regional cultural sensitivity. And during each session, we spotlight one of the regions that we work in. And today we will talk about the countries that we work in Latin America, which are Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Honduras, and Peru. So we recognize that each region and each country that we work in has distinct cultural norms and practices, and that it takes time and experience to learn and understand how to navigate any cultural differences. Our in-country staff provides valuable information and tips to advisors during each assignment, but we really wanted to create a platform where we can have a more in-depth discussion around the cultural intricacies of each country with the aim of better preparing our advisors for the assignment. Because apart from an open mind, patience, and flexibility, knowledge of the culture that you're working will really go a long way in creating a strong relationship with the partner and implementing a successful assignment. So we have a panel of 4 speakers today, 2 in-country staff and 2 advisors with experience in the region who will discuss the following 4 topics. These are key cultural norms and practices, office environment, virtual work, and working in urban versus rural communities. So I will now let our panelists introduce themselves. And I will start with Alejandra in Colombia.
Thank you, Bob. Hi, everyone. My name is Tapes, and I'm project officer in Colombia. And I've been working with Catalyst, I think, 8 years now.
Great, thank you, Alejandra. Then Carlos in Bolivia.
Oh, thank you, Pac. The internet connection is very, very poor here, but I think Benoit, you have the same problem here?
I'm using my phone.
My name is Carlos Ramallo, as Pac said. I am the country representative in Bolivia. I'm working with the Catalyst previous case, so almost 16 years old. It's very long time. And it's my pleasure to be here in the webinar. Thanks, Yanis. Thanks, Benoit. Thanks, Pac. And thanks, Alejandra.
Great, thanks, Carlos. And if you notice that the connection isn't great, feel free to switch off your video at any time if that works, helps better.
Okay, thank you.
Then we'll go to Benoit, who is currently also in Bolivia.
Yes, close physically to Carlos in the same building, but not on the same floor. But yes, we're both in Bolivia. I'm Benoit, they call me, or Benito, which is usual here. It's easier sometimes to use something that is easier to pronounce. And I'm coming from an advertising communication background. I've been teaching for a long time, and now I'm doing this. I'm really happy to do that. I'm working mostly in strategic branding, marketing project, and this is why I'm here right now. So happy to be with all of you, and looking forward to this.
Great, thanks, Benoit. And last but not least, Janice.
Good morning, everyone, or I guess good afternoon. I'm happy to be here also. Thank you, and to the rest of the panel. Although Carlos said he's been there 16 years, it is a long time. His experience is very evident when he represents you as a country representative. I've been doing assignments with Kesso probably for about 12 or 13 years. My background is with the federal government in Canada, but I always had a special interest and background in leadership and organizational development and communications, and planning. So that's what I've done most of my assignments around those themes over the years. And I'm also happy to participate today. Thank you.
Great, Janice. Thank you. And which countries have you done assignments in Latin America?
Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia.
Great. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Let's get started. So we'll start with our first topic, and I'll start with a prompt question to start the conversation. So our first topic is around what are your 2 tips that advisors should be aware of in terms of cultural norms and practices before they start working with a partner?
Who should go first?
I think
Whoever.
I can
Okay,
go.
Alejandra.
I can go.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so can you hear me well?
Yes.
Well, so based on my experience, I think that it's a good tip is to build trust first with the partner. I think in many Latin American countries, and including Colombia, of course, we are very focused on relationships, and we are very warm sometimes. And it's important to take time to connect on a personal level with people. This can, I don't know, if advisors can show interest and communicate with them since the beginning and on a personal level, it might help to create more trust during the process. I know that sometimes the time is very short, and that CAs are worried about not having enough time to develop what they are here in the country to do. But I think this might help a lot create trust before going into technical stuff and talks. That would be one of my tips.
Good.
Should I go with the second one, or someone else want to talk? Let's talk.
I could build on that a bit, Alejandra. I've done a number of rural assignments in Peru and Bolivia, and that is definitely a great tip to build the relationship, build the trust, and to communicate with the not just the partner, but the country rep. You have lots of experience. You know about maybe little local holidays that we wouldn't know about. And it does take time when you go into some of these smaller communities to allow people time to warm up to you and to trust you, and that you're not just there to tell them what to do, but you're there also to sort of meet them where they're at. And I think that that's an important aspect of it. I do always try to communicate with the partner and with the country rep. I do a little bit of my own research around the country. I think what you learn about cultural norms as an advisor is different than what you might observe as a tourist. So it is important to do some of that research. And one other one, I guess, in starting off is always bring toilet paper or Kleenex, regardless of where the assignment is. Just a practical tip. And never go anywhere without it, regardless of the location.
Yeah, it's important, I think, to make the trust and the relationship with the partner. I have two tips. I can start with one, with big one, I think, is the greetings. How is the attitude to make a greeting with the partner, with the member of the partnership? Especially when there are a CA, a woman CA, and Mancia is the greeting with a female partner, with a female membership of the partner. No? The kiss, 1 kiss, 2 kiss, 3 kiss is the
Okay.
question.
Right.
On the left, on the right,
My
yes.
suggestion is
You have
to
to learn
wait a
that.
moment. Or in some places, there's no kiss, just a handshake, no more.
Yeah.
My suggestion in this case is to wait the action or the attitude of the woman, what the attitude will take, she in this case. And it's not easy at this moment to take a kiss or 1 kiss, 2 kiss. Nobody knows. In the urban sites, in the urban cities, in the Santa Cruz, for example, Benoit, I left to Benoit to say what happened in this case. 1 kiss.
Well, it is 1 kiss, and you have to check, and that's the connection I can make with Carlos, and we were together, is that being French Canadian, we do too, and we start on the other side. So there's something
Yeah.
about waiting to do it properly. I think I did, but you have to wait for it, and you have to see how it's done, and it's basically not that complicated, but it's something that you have to remind yourself, because those are small things, and those are greetings, and those are way to build on the connection that you mentioned before, Alessandra. There's something about that, the trust. And if you're going with the flow, usually that's going well, yes.
Yes, it's important to trust with the partner, how to develop the trust with the partner, how to develop the relationship with the partner. But
Yeah.
usually or normally they are more friendly here in Bolivia, independent of the city, La Paz or Santa Cruz, more in Santa Cruz than in La Paz, because in La Paz they are in altitude, are 4,000 meters of altitude or 3,500 meters of altitude. And they are more quiet. And this side is flat side, less altitude, and the people are so friendly. In case the woman is so friendly here.
It's, I also think that it doesn't matter how many assignments I go on, I become aware of these little tiny cultural biases that I carry around in my head that live in the unconscious part of myself. And then I'm in an experience and it comes forward and I go, oh, well, that kind of surprises me. I am very familiar with having those little cultural biases. Maybe the best example I could bring is maybe how you would do strategic planning or how you might do an activity related to that in a Canadian organization. If they don't respond in that way, it doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to communicate or they don't have the capacity to tell a story, but you need to build the environment that you're in build a trusting environment for people to feel that it's okay to share something personal that they want to improve or learn more about. So it's not reacting immediately to, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this strategic planning? It's thinking about, okay, well, how do I need to do it for them? How do I need to facilitate this process for them?
So it's being aware of the relationship you have with the partner and the knowledge that you have and they have about you, and then
Yes.
how your information is coming across.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially when you are English speaker and you have a translator for that.
Yes, I've had to work with translators, and in both times, the translators, or 3 times I've worked with, come from those communities. And they're rural communities, and their ancestry and their history is very important to them as part of the process. But the translators, it's more about us working together as opposed to the translator being in service to me or to the group. So I rely on and I invite the translator to give me feedback around, are they understanding how this activity, is the activity working for them? do I have to come back and reframe it or give them further instructions? So I asked the translator to go with me also if I'm doing small group activities to ensure that they understand what the instructions are, or whether I'm talking too fast, those types of things. And they're more than helpful, amazing partners to work with the translators. And they know the culture and the practices.
You do.
It's
I don't use translator.
not only a
I'm talking
translator,
too
it's
fast.
Sorry.
I'm still talking too
Sorry.
fast when I'm not using translator. In my case. But the one I think that to push to make some connection with what you just said, Janet, is sometimes we're coming with tools that are for us, or that is you think that it's going to work exactly the same way. For example, I'm using a lot of workshop, which is different than a training, and it
Right.
needs more participation. That's how I do things. That's what I've been doing in the past. And one of the things with people with different title, which is one of the points that I find important for people, is that title and who's the director and who's the title of that person and who's speaking first and everything. It is part of the cultural title ranking and director and professor and the titles that people are using. It's important to know that for maybe me, maybe for you guys too. Okay, everyone's going to talk whatever because it's a workshop and we're going to. But then people are waiting for someone to start, and then eventually with trust, I think we can go over that. But there's something about that part, and since I am not using a translator, maybe I'm missing some of those things. Not that I don't understand, but I don't have someone to give me some insight live, so I have to do it on my own. I think it's working well. Tell me if I'm doing bad. Carlos, you were there. But there's something about that part that is to understand who's doing what and who's actually talking and why do people are waiting for him or her to talk first, which is part of the culture in some cases.
Alejandra and
I'm
Carlos.
not,
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna continue on that because that's an interesting point about hierarchy and greetings and titles.
Mhm.
Alejandra and Carlos, how can advisors figure out what with their partner what the hierarchy situation is, and how can they find out which greetings or which titles to use? Do you have any tips?
I think that, well, first of all, have a conversation maybe with the team and ask specific questions about this. But also, I think that it's important to just pay attention on when you are on assignment, on who makes the decisions, who speaks the most, or who is usually more quiet, because I think this is going to give some clues on how the dynamic works. So yeah, I would say that.
Carlos, do you have any tips for for Bolivia specifically?
I agree with Alejandra. It's important to make a relationship with the partner and also with the CR or the local team. It's very important to do that. That's the case with the Benoit is our, we call it in Spanish the
Sorry, you're lagging a little bit. It's hard to hear you. Maybe
we
if you
try
Carlos, your
looking for
connection is
this
a little poor.
So, and it's important to make the trust with the partner. It's very important to this.
Better
maybe I'll pick up on that. And yes, I missed the part, but we've been together for a couple of days, so I can think like Carlos. I can hear him in my ear, even though there's a connection problem on my side too. Something about the title and the role, maybe to push to keep on talking about the same subject, is the fact that they see us as VIPs, which is a joke that I'm doing with Carlos. I was a VIP. I came to the airport. There was a mariachi band, and it was, of course, for me because they were at front of the airport for the Canadian. But it's true that they do see us advisors as being VIP, so they're presenting us to groups, and this is the subsecretary, and this is the governor or the or someone in the
Yeah.
director. And they also ask us to participate, talk to the media. There was an interview yesterday, and there's going to be a presentation with the university. So there's something about us that I don't feel like I'm a VIP. I'm a P. I think I'm maybe a IP. I don't know if I'm a very important P, but there's something about that that they think that we are that big deal. And it is a big deal for them to have someone like us come and discuss and work on very important subjects. But there's something that is not usual for, at least not for me, to get that type of an attention. So that's kind of getting ready that we are like ambassador to, not a real ambassador, but an ambassador for the Canadian brand and for the organization. And the media will ask you questions. They'll take photo with you. And so there's something that is strange, that is not usual in Canada, at least. I don't get a mariachi band every time I take a plane. I'll ask for it next time. But there's something about that is important to know, that they look at you differently because of what you're doing there.
Mhm. Yeah.
So how can you prepare? How do you prepare for that, for taking on that role?
You have to not be too stressed. Well, that's on my side, is to expect a little bit that they're going to ask you and ask you to do things that are not directly related to what you're doing there. Oh, there's a special we're going to introduce you to that group and everything. So flexibility, I think, would be one way to get ready. And it's hard to get ready by being flexible, but thinking about being flexible, I think, is a way to get ready. And also to go with the flow. So if there's a picture taking and you don't actually know why you're taking, well, you just take a picture and then there's a picture of you somewhere. So there's something about that. Flexibility is a way to react, maybe not to prepare, but I think it's a way that we should look into that. And also to maybe on the preparation side, something that could be connected is to expect it. If you expected that there's going to be those type of a thing, then you're not surprised when that happens.
I have found if I'm working with a government organization, the hierarchy and it's more formal than, other rural initiatives and smaller groups we're working with. So if I usually try to find out, because as Benoit said, there's going to be some formality. There may be some introductions. They may want you to meet with the deputy minister or something. So I think it's finding out what the appropriate dress for, especially as speaking from a woman, what's the appropriate dress? In some locations, you can't wear a pair of sandals into a government building, and you need to have your shoulders covered. Just small examples like that. So if I was going to work for a government organization, I would prepare myself to have some sort of outfit that was appropriate for business or professional attire, but not casual. And I would expect, as Benoit said, that I would probably get introduced to a number of different people. So, yeah.
This is a great segue into our next topic of office, specifically the office environment, which, attire, I think, from more formal attire is a really good example. So, so what are other things that advisors should pay attention to when working specifically in an office environment? And how, if we can continue with the attire, how is that different from most Canadian offices among the 5 different countries that we're talking about? I don't know if there's lots of differences between the 5 countries.
Well, maybe Benoit and I chatted about the fact that his assignments have been mostly in the city and in offices. Mine have been more in the rural areas. So maybe I'll let Benoit address it from the city side, and then I'll take it from the rural side.
Yeah, on my side, I always cover my shoulders, so I'm good on that part. But I know what you mean. I'm hesitant and I do have a jacket, by the way, Carlos. I just brought it, but it's something about being in the tropical 32, 33 degrees Celsius plus humidity, that the jacket is really hard. And I realized that most of the other men, because I was comparing myself to them, were also just wearing shirts. So that was good in that sense. I didn't look completely different. But there's something about the city life, as you mentioned, that is a little bit more formal, I would say. Um, in our case, they know that we are not from the place, so we are invited. We're Canadians, so there's I think, a little bit of flexibility there. So we're dressed to work, but it's more about work in different environments. So I think there's a little bit of understanding. Shoes is something that I'm thinking about too. In my case, I do have sandal, but they don't look like sandal. And sometimes maybe tomorrow we'll see Carlos, but full shoes for environment, which is actually a good point even for me. And I would say the business environment, in my case, the office side. Um, you have to adapt if you're coming all the time to the same place. For example, maybe I didn't do that this time, but you wear a jacket and then you realize you're the only one with the jacket. Then the other days you don't wear the jacket because no one does it. So you can adapt, and that's my case too. If I'm going back all the time to the same place.
Yeah.
I think it's important always to ask
Yes.
to the CIER or the ICT or some member of the partner who is reliable. Just ask. Always ask.
So
I
that's
agree.
acceptable to just ask, oh, what's common? What should I do?
It's absolutely. I've never felt uncomfortable or had an awkward response when I've asked the partners, and I always ask because there's the social or informal side of things, and then there's the meeting side of things, and so I always ask what's appropriate to wear, and generally it's casual or business casual, but yes, it's absolutely fine to ask. It's nothing worse than being overdressed or underdressed in a situation where it's good to ask.
Yeah.
In the rural environments I've been in Peru and Bolivia, sometimes the training room, well, in Peru, it was outside, on a platform with a big steel roof, but everything else was open to the outdoors. So when it rained, and, so your exposure, and then you don't have exact access in many of these locations to, yeah, what do you call overhead viewers to use your laptop and do a presentation, or to a variety of different tools like that. Maybe not even electricity, maybe not internet. So all of my work I'm doing when I go into a rural area is always saved on a USB. I'm not relying on bringing it down from a cloud at all, because it just may not be accessible on the time of the day that you need it. So I have it on my PC, but I also have it on a USB. I always ask for flip chart paper, something that I can make notes where I can stick it up on any sort of wall. I'm not always outdoors. Lots of times I'm indoors, but one time I was in the offset of a church or something, and they didn't have electricity in that room. So you just don't know what the logistics are going to be like in the room. So you have to come sort of prepared to work with or without them, is generally my experience. And I usually have to bring my hiking boots, because if you're working in a town that's on the side of a mountain, or even if it's not 2,000 feet up, there's still lots of hilly roads in the town, and you're not taking the bus or a taxi, you're walking. And so you need proper walking footwear, good solid running shoes, or a pair of hiking boots. I've always needed them one way or another, whether it's due to weather or rain, or just because they want to take you out of the town and to view some specific area. So yeah, I usually have to bring more supplies also that you might need as a facilitator, whether it's notes or markers or those types of things. But The atmosphere is amazing. It's amazing to facilitate a session when you're surrounded by, banana trees and the sides of a mountain. The views are pretty spectacular.
I think that Post-it, they don't stick well to banana trees. I tried, it doesn't work for me.
It's true. They don't. Yeah, that's right.
Talking about Post-it for real, it was yesterday we had a workshop, and it is stationaries is actually one of the points that I brought because it is connected to what you just said. We expect maybe as Canadian that they're going to go shop and right away. And sometimes they do have some stuff in the office, of course, and there were some Post-it, but it was a limited amount. And in another case, in another other country, they actually had to order it and they fill a form with the government to order the paper. It was a
Yeah.
government agency,
Yeah.
but there's something about paper that we take for granted. That's Post-it and paper and pens are everywhere, but sometimes they have to ask for it and get the budget for it. So there's something about the planning part of this. And to pick up on your connection with the non-connection, if you don't have internet, what I'm doing on my side is that I'm working from when I have the internet, I'm working with Google Drive, and then I have one document that I can use. And what I actually did yesterday, and I'm doing usually, is to download on my phone a PDF version of that
Right.
document, which is
Mm.
not
That's a good idea.
updatable, but I always have it with me. And you have to charge your phone. That's something that you have to think about because you're right, internet doesn't always work. And you don't have always electricity. The only thing that I would say is tell them that you're looking at your phone for work, not to look at TikTok's video or something. So that's always useful.
These are some
And I-
good practical tips. I was going to go to a different topic. I really
Yeah.
want to talk about punctuality and timeliness and how that works in the 5 countries. And I was going to ask Alejandra what you notice about what's helpful for advisors to know in that regards, because it may be very different.
Yeah, there are differences on this. I think that the tip is to be flexible and to understand that the context is different. Here in Colombia, I think everybody moves at different pace from what maybe Canadian people does. So meetings usually start a little bit later, or even the processes take more time because people like they take a lot of time making some decisions, or there are unexpected issues that can affect the schedules or the agendas. So I think advisors need to be very flexible and maybe try to avoid interpreting these delays as a lack of interest because it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think flexibility is very important. Maybe try to check frequently to make sure that everyone is aligned, but understanding that probably time is going to be a thing, an issue, not an issue, but it could make the agenda change sometimes. So yeah, try to be flexible and communicate with the partner, with the in-country team. If maybe things are not working, I think communication is key
Mhm.
in everything.
I agree. I think also it's important to communicate with the partner beforehand, depending on your group. In my experience, in some of the rural communities, people have to walk there and they're probably working in their fields in the morning. And if you have a lot of women in your group that you're working with, I'm not saying it's not men and women, but if there are women, often their responsibilities are work. They have to do some work in the field or whatever their means of earning income. They have children. So getting to maybe a workshop early in the morning or staying later in the day once the kids are done school, it doesn't always work. And so I always check with the partner around the hours that would be most suitable. Sometimes I've started at 9:30 and then end at 3 o'clock or something. But being able, as Alejandra said, to be flexible because they do want to participate, but they can't just put it on the shelf. They don't have any options around. They still have to earn money. They still have to maybe walk a long distance, or they may not have easy transportation. So I think it's worthwhile spending the time and definitely being flexible.
Yeah, there's something about Canadian, I would say, that we look at time as one thing, like monochronic time. That's
Mm.
that's I've been reading about that, and it is true that it's one thing at a time, like one task and the other thing, in one hour and everything. And I think that there's something that is more fluid, more flexible, and more because there's more than one thing going on at the same time. And that's something that I think we can learn from because we're really just like one thing, one thing, one thing. When there's, for example, family priorities, and then there's the office, and there's politics at the same time, and the weather, and everything is going on at the same time. So when we are, okay, I'm coming, it's going to be at 9 o'clock. Yes, but it's just one thing in a full day. And sometimes all the things are happening at the same time. That's kind of the way that I'm explaining it to myself, that I'm one of the things that they're thinking about, and that's just one of the small things of everything that's happening at the same time. I don't know if it makes sense with you guys. I mean, Alexandra and Carlos, because that's my something about the time. There's a lot of things that fits into the time, and that's why it moves. It's kind of flexible. I don't know if it makes sense.
Does any of you have an example of during an assignment where there was confusion about timing?
There's no confusion. I think
No.
it's a different way. Well, there could be confusion, but there's something about, well, that's a good example. Like transport didn't work. If there's no transport, then they cannot come. Like physically, it's not possible. We take for granted that everything will work all the time. And emergencies, we kind of
Yeah.
push the emergency aside. And family, we're not as connected with the family and everything. So there's something about that is we have to expect it. I think that
Yeah.
there's going to be some change. And for us, and for me in particular, that's how I use the time. Because if we start later, it's not always possible to extend on the other side because there's other
Right.
appointments and food and everything. So there's something about us, I think, moving within that flexible time and to be more multitasking minded, I say, and then just one thing at a time and then one thing at a time, which is really Canadian, and we can be more flexible, I think. And advisor needs to think about that. Definitely.
If I find the timing is if I'm concerned about whether I'm going to accomplish what I need to accomplish over the 10 days or so that I'm there, and things like timing are getting involved, not just because of whatever, weather, family, any other type of situation. At the end of every day, I take a look at my sort of planned agenda for the next day, and I'll talk to the partner in the morning and say, I think it would be, if we try to do all of this today. I basically adjust the agenda or adjust the objectives for the day in conversation with the partner. So if we don't do this today, then this is going to mean this down, we have to pick up time or eliminate it or something. And they're always understanding and they're always very flexible so we can work it out. So that's the piece that I do with the partner, and just review the agenda in the morning and make some recommendations on where we might need to adjust the agenda. Don't get too stuck on what your plan was. Like, a plan is good, but don't get so stuck on it that you get frustrated or upset that you can't do the plan as you intended to do before you left home.
And we have
Yeah, I
some other
think
input, sorry, from an attendee who is saying that cell phone communication is really important with the client, but also with in-country staff and family at home. And that sometimes it can be difficult to access network in the country.
WhatsApp is one of the answers. I mean that's an app that everyone is using here. Not in Canada. It's a new one for me. But it's one of the answers. Like when cell doesn't work, then WhatsApp with a Wi-Fi connection works. So that's maybe one of the answers to that point. But that's a great point. Yes, definitely.
Let's talk a bit more about the virtual part of the aspect of the work, because every assignment has some type of virtual component. Even if there's a trip to the country connected, there's always preparation before you leave and then afterwards. And I know that can be a little bit challenging sometimes to have virtual communication, email or video calls. what are some tips or things to think about, or what are th things that are helpful for advisors to know when you do a virtual assignment or virtual part of an assignment?
For the virtual assignments, it's important the language,
Yes.
communication. What's important for this is how the CA can develop the assignment in the virtual mode. It's important the attitude, the signs, how he can communicate the content of the assignment. This is important.
Do you mean the tone of the language or actually using Spanish or using a
The
translator?
tone of the language it depends on the content. In certain moments you can up the tone, down the tone. It depends. But the contrary, in the other side, the participants all want to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, to
That's
make it
really-
very interactive, you mean?
Yeah, that's mean interactive.
Yeah.
And also, I think that the language you use is important and how direct you are when you are in virtual sessions because they are short. Yeah, they are more short, and you have a translator there. So it's not the same to have an in-person conversation. You have to be more, I don't know the word, yeah, like more direct maybe with what you're saying and not go around because communication is difficult and sometimes connectivity as well. So I think it's important to maybe not use a lot of how to say this like things that someone who speaks English understand perfectly, but someone if you translate that to Spanish is not going to be clear, and so you have to explain what you're saying. So yeah, be very direct with the message that you want to give.
We have a question about that. If there are translators available to assist with virtual assignments.
I've had a translator with the virtual assignment. I think we started to do it without a translator, but that didn't work very well. And then we used a translator. I think it's great that a translator is provided, but at the same time, what happened is I didn't have all the participants in the same room, watching it on a screen and communicating. People were calling in on their phone and using or sitting in different locations to sign on to this virtual. It wasn't training, it was a planning session or something, but actually I didn't find it was very effective. And I finished the assignment and got done what was done. But I think for me, nothing to do with the translator, but there's just too many people in different places with something that's not straightforward that for me, that methodology didn't work.
I agree. I used actually the way that happened in my case. I did a project with a translator that was remotely, and then at what point she couldn't be there to one of the workshop that we were planning. And what I did is that I switched to Spanish, which I can do, which I'm lucky that I can do that. But it's something that actually started the trend, and now I'm always doing this, always doing that in Spanish.
Yeah.
But there's something about using a translator, specifically when you understand. Then they're saying something, and then you have to say, no, what I meant is this, and there's something that's an extra step. So it is good to have translator because some people do not understand English. That's for sure. I'm not even sure if I do understand English, and I'm French Canadian, But there's something about that part. So we have to make sure that it's helpful for the group, and it is helpful for some people. At the same time, it takes twice as long. So on the remote part, it is a little tough on that part. What I did at one point was when the translator was doing it in Spanish, I was answering directly after that. Also, when there was question in Spanish, I was answering in English. There was one step less. But there's something about that needs to be done. And on the remote part, the participation sometimes is less not because of that either translation or the use of the language, or as you mentioned, and that's a good point, Alexandra, the actual type of language. Sometimes we're too business mind, and then we just realize, well, people are not in business; they're more from the agricultural side, so everything is new, even though it's the right word. So we have to adapt that. But for me, what I do is that I'm using the chat more than I would normally do, and I'm like pasting text in the chat. For example, pasting question written in the chat so they can read it, so that I don't completely butcher it in my Spanish. So this is one way that I do it, and I ask them to use the chat to respond because they don't open their camera. That's one of the points that I want to mention on
Yes.
this one. They just don't, because they don't have the connection, because maybe they're shy, but there's something about the connection and the bandwidth that they don't have. And sometimes they're doing something else at the same time. So they're working and listening to you, which is part of the game.
Yeah. I always do make sure that the presentations or the material I'm using, even though I'm working with the translator, I do present the information in the other language, if it's Spanish, for example, and then I have an English version with me. And I usually use DeepL. I find DeepL, or I received advice from country reps in Latin America that DeepL is a little better than Google Translate. And then I would send it to the country rep, and they often will review it for me, or the partner will review it quickly just to make sure that what I'm presenting is appropriate, for that particular community.
Do any of you have experience with using AI platforms for real-time translation? That's what someone is saying in the chat.
I haven't.
I didn't use it. Yeah. In my case, I use AI to take notes, which is something that I did use for the group. So I use AI for note taking. So when we're talking, we grab everything, and the AI is doing kind of it helps me doing a summary of what we spoke about, but not the live translation as it was mentioned by Alexander in the conversation. So
I
there's
use
something
it on.
about that.
Sorry, I use it on WhatsApp when I'm communicating with people. I use it on WhatsApp, so it's very good in Spanish. If I'm communicating with members through Spanish, I use it there on WhatsApp. It works well.
Usually the CA sent the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
And we review this presentation. We adapt some terms, some words, especially for the application in English and Spanish. Sometimes it's different. And we talk with the translator and explain this word, this term that the CA used, and this is good. This works for us.
When I'm doing an in-person, virtual plus in-person assignment, so there's the virtual part first, I do always check with the partner around their preferred method of, if I have to gather information before I go there to maybe start the planning process, then I ask them about, would they be able to use SurveyMonkey? Would they prefer I put a survey and send it out via WhatsApp? Can we get most of the time getting together on a Google Meet activity in some of the smaller communities isn't as feasible because of some of the reasons Benoit and others have mentioned. So WhatsApp's a pretty common tool for me to use. I can still put a Word document on it. I can put a little survey on it, but it's easier for them to access it, I think, if they don't have access to a computer or an office environment.
I'd like to finish this topic. I don't know if there's anything left. Virtual, I'd like to spend a little bit on our last topic and then keep some minutes for some other questions that we received in chat. So we already touched a bit about the differences between urban versus rural communities. But maybe we can talk a little bit in specific about working with indigenous and minority communities. And Alejandra, I know you You had shared before working with Afro-descendant communities in Colombia and how there are some cultural differences in working with them.
Yeah, well, specifically with them, we've seen that they have a very oral culture, so for them it's very difficult to work with documents and these kind of things. And this could be frustrating for some advisors. But I think that it's important to adapt a little bit because for them it works to create their projects on an oral basis. So I think that's something to keep in mind. We
What
did
does that mean
have
in practice? Sorry, what does that mean in practice for when you work with a community who works more verbally and not so much written? What is that?
Well, for example, we had a situation with an advisor who realized that's more an oral culture, and he was helping the partner to create a strategic plan and then an action plan, and he was expecting. We had a conversation about what they wanted for the next year, and he was expecting that they would create the plan on their own, and they weren't able to do it. I mean, they sent something very basic, and with the advisor saw this was a little bit frustrated, but then he understood this cultural difference, and he helped them create the plan, and he just sent it, and we met virtually. We met, and during this meeting, the partner gave some feedback and made questions, and it helped them. It was useful for them.
I think I'm not sure that I've had a lot of experience in Latin America working with indigenous groups or minority groups, but certainly in some of the rural communities, they do prefer a more emphasis on the oral communication. And you can get some really rich responses, but I think you have to, using a translator and considering their preference for oral communication, you have to be very generous in your agenda of what you think you can get done in a day. If you're working with a translator, you need, if you would estimate an activity or something would take an hour and a half, with a translator, it's going to take probably almost 3 hours. So you almost have to double when you're designing your workshop or designing your time. You almost have to double the time with a translator. And if you can speak the same language, but although Mongolia doesn't apply here, they're very oral culture in Mongolia. You have to give them lots of time to tell their story. And even if you stand up and say, okay, thank you everyone for your participation, or we're going to move on, they'll just keep standing and telling their story. So you do have to, and it's worth it listening, but you do have to make sure in the design side that you're giving lots of time for those types of cultures to share.
Great. Any other thoughts, specifically any other examples? Maybe Carlos, I don't know if you, in Bolivia, we work a lot with indigenous or smaller groups.
No, we don't have at this moment to
Or in the
work
past?
with the minority groups. But in the past,
Yeah,
we
or in the-
worked with the minority groups of Aymaras. It's difficult to work with a translator because the translator works in English to Spanish and Spanish to Aymara. That's the problem. That's the problem to work with a translator. We need to separate the group who speak English or who speak Spanish and who speak Aymara. in the other side, we need a translator, a bilingual translator, first to Spanish and then to Aymara. It's so difficult. And at this moment, we don't work with the minority groups, with the rural groups, exactly in the people with talk Aymara or Quechua, exactly. No.
I have a question in the chat that was answered already by Natalia, our program manager for Latin America. But it may be interesting to talk it through a bit with our panel as well. The question is what we look for before an assignment starts to assess if the CA would be a good cultural fit, and especially if maybe the Spanish of a CA is not very strong. What are things that the partner is the one who will decide which volunteer they'd like to work with, depending on the resume and the letter. But what are things that Alejandra and Carlos that you've noticed is very helpful for advisors to have or to know when they do an assignment in one of your countries?
Alejandra.
No, go ahead. I'm thinking.
I'm thinking.
Yes, this is
thinking
a
too.
wild card for you.
No, we don't make the decision about the partner, about the CA. We left the decision to the partner. What happened, what they want at this moment.
Let me rephrase it. Yeah, let me rephrase it. And what have you noticed over the years that works really well if advisors skills or knowledge that advisors have when they do an assignment in your country? What have you noticed that when assignments are really beneficial and effective in terms of what CAs bring to the table?
Yeah, we said to the CAs, always ask us. Ask to us or ask to some member of the partner. That's the key. That's important, the communication. That's important, the key. That's important to make a question. What happened if this or that? What happened if this or that? It's important to make a questions.
Yeah, I think communication and flexibility are very important. I think that the assignments or that the assignments that we have developed that doesn't have any problems are when advisors are flexible, or when they are not comfortable with something, they say it on time to the in-country team, and we can do something to make it better if it's possible. Understanding that there are some places that they have limited options in many ways, in hotels, in food. So yeah, I think communication and flexibility always makes things easier for everyone.
And
we are lucky in some moments because we have, for example, advisors who went to a town without hotel. How he can sleep, roll it in the very blankets, very much blankets. That's it. No calefacción, no hot air, nothing. It's important to be flexible and to be happy to be happy to work with the community. It's important.
Maybe we can do, because we're at the end of our session, maybe we can do a very quick last tip also from Benoit and Janice before we finish the conversation. Very brief last tip for advisors.
Yes, I would say go to the plaza. Go to the plazas. Because I was thinking of rural and city and the plaza, the actual where people are meeting. That's something that maybe as an advisor, we're business minded and we're going back to the hotel. Go to the plazas, go to the park, go to where people are actually going. That's where the action is. And what I mean action is that looking at people doing their own life. That would be a tip that I'm doing almost every day, just to see outside of work what people are doing. So that would be kind of a tip. Go outside, take a look, take a plaza. It's going to be good.
I agree,
Jess?
Benoit. That's a really good tip and a really good way to get to know the community. What might I say in addition? I think thinking about Alejandra and Carlos's response, I think you need to know yourself as an advisor when you select an assignment. Are you willing, if you're going into a rural area or a city area, are you willing and comfortable with what that environment is going to provide for you? I love going to the rural areas, but there's lots of services. The comfort creatures, as we would know them at home, as you would call them, are not always available. But for me, I like that. I'm okay with that. So I tend to be drawn to those types of assignments. But I think the important thing is know yourself and know whether you can thrive or manage in the different kinds of environments and the physical, geographical, cultural things that you're presented with. So to do a little reflection on who you are and whether you can do well in an environment like that.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're at the end of our session. Thank you, the four of you, so much for all your valuable insights and tips. This was really interesting. Thank you, everyone, for joining this discussion today. We'll save the recording in My Catalyst Plus, and we'll share it with all our advisors who are going to Latin America going forward. Our next session on the webinar series will be in January, and we'll focus on the Caribbean. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, Pat.
Thank you.
Luck with
Thank you,
your
Janet. Thank
assignment.
you, Benoit.
Bye-bye.
Alejandra.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.